Hello again at Global Azure 2022. We are back again, part of the global stream with session about Power BI Paginated Reports. Power BI Paginated Reports are very important because we have this very good opportunity to have functionalities pretty similar to what you have in all BI solutions for reports, where you have reports based on many printed pages and you have the same look as if you have reporting very different types of media. Power BI Paginated Reports has some specifics, and we will talk about these today. This session is delivered also in Power BI Summit 2 months ago, and this is one of my favorite topics. So enjoy the session about deep dive into Power BI Paginated Reports. Pretty similar to what you have in all BI solutions for reports, where you have.
Hello everyone, welcome on this session on deep dive into Power BI Paginated Reports. My name is Michiel Mateev, I'm PhD on cloud computing and computer science, Microsoft MVP, and I'm community enthusiast. Power BI is one of my favorite areas and I really like to present on Power BI. Hope you will enjoy this session. First, let's say big thank you to sponsors of Power BI Summit. Without sponsors, it is not possible to have such awesome event. Appreciate. For additional information, you can visit my webpage or my personal blog. You can contact me via social media. I will be glad to discuss topics related to this presentation and any technical content. In this presentation, we will cover introduction to Power BI Paginated Reports. We will talk how to get data, what kind of prerequisites we need to start with Paginated Reports, Report Builder, and everything related. We will go deeper in how to create paginated reports, and especially we will talk more about report parameters with many details. And in the summary part, we will share some good practices, and in the end there will be demo. Let's now see what exactly is specific for paginated reports. Paginated reports are needed when we need to have very strict controlled rendering requirements for reporting. When we need to have some reports having many pages and we want these pages to look exactly how we design it. It is very appropriate for invoices, receipts, purchase order, and different kind of tabular data. Power BI Paginated Reports are inheritors of SQL Server Reporting Services, or SSRS, which was introduced in 2004. Power BI Paginated Reports and SSRS have a lot of common features. It is good to know when paginated reports are good fit for our work. Usually it's better and preferable to use paginated reports when we have for reporting some tables with details and optional headers and footers, when we need to reprint these reports on paper, or if we want ERC, purchase orders, invoices. Paginated reports are appropriate when we want to render tabular data very well on our reports, and when we need to have customized sort orders, clickable headers with some URLs in results. Power BI paginated reports are also very appropriate when we want to have our reports in single report element, such as table, and when we want to integrate these reports with custom applications. Power BI paginated reports are not created in Power BI desktop. We need separate application for this, and Power BI paginated reports are built using Power BI Report Builder. Power BI paginated reports are feature of Power BI Premium. That means you need to have Power BI Premium capacity and specified subscription for this to be possible to work with this feature. We will share at the end of the presentation additional details what exactly we need from Power BI Premium to be possible to work with paginated reports. We will talk additionally about Power BI Report Builder, how to create reports, how to publish reports, and how in general Power BI Report Builder works with Power BI service. Let's now have an overview how we can get data into our paginated reports. There are several specifics when we need to get data for Power BI paginated reports. Power BI paginated reports can collect data from different sources. It is possible to get data from already published Power BI datasets, but it is possible to get data separately from different data sources. Data is not stored in Power BI paginated report dataset, and when we have refresh, actually new data is added from the source. Power BI paginated reports also does not include data cleaning steps in a way like we have for data sets in Power BI. It is possible indirectly to have this functionality if Power BI paginated reports are based on Power BI datasets already created in advance. Power BI paginated reports allows querying, but we have no all these features which we have in Power BI Query Builder. It is pretty easy to configure new data source. It is possible to add it using different options and to choose the data source and to test connection. When we have data source, we need also to create and configure data set, and data set here is saved information of the query against data source, not the data like it is possible to do in Power BI. Data always resides in its original location. What we need as prerequisites to start to work with paginated reports. First, we need to have Power BI Report Builder. It is possible to download it from Microsoft Download Center. It is for free and we have no need of any license to download and install Power BI Report Builder. It is possible to publish Power BI paginated reports into My Workspace or other workspaces. For My Workspace, you have no need of premium subscription, but if you want to publish paginated reports into other workspaces, it is needed to have Power BI Pro, Power BI Premium per user. You need Power BI Premium or Power BI Premium per user to manage premium capacity for your workspaces, which is needed to work with published reports, paginated reports. But as I mentioned, for upload of reports, you need just Pro license, and for my workspace, you can do it with any license, even with free. For Power BI Premium second generation, everything related to support of paginated reports is enabled automatically. For Power BI Premium Capacity first generation, Power BI admin needs to enable paginated reports into Premium Capacity section of the admin portal. It is needed to have Power BI report. To install Power BI Report Builder, you need to load it from Microsoft Download Center or from Power BI Report Server. Power BI Report Builder supports most of versions of Windows, starting from Windows 7 and Windows Server 2012 and all newer versions, and it requires also installed Microsoft .NET Framework 4.6. It is needed to have 80 megabytes available on hard disk, and you need also at least 512 megabytes of RAM. There are several steps to create paginated report. If you have already your data sources and data sets, you need to have visual which will be rendered on the report surface. Usually such kind of visual is table component, so you can choose insert table or insert table wizard, and you can make all settings needed to have a good look of this tabular representation. Created reports can be tested locally using run component, and it is possible to navigate through pages. To filter data or to have different representation of the data depending on specific criteria, we need to add parameters. It's pretty easy to add parameters, and we will go back to this topic later in our presentation. The most important is to have understanding what exactly need to have in our reports, and after that adding of parameters is really very simple and easy for understanding. It is also possible to insert charts into reporting canvas, and it is really powerful feature to have in paginated reports representation of both graphical and attribute data. Publishing of paginated reports is pretty straightforward. It is similar to what we need to publish reports in Power BI Desktop. Best practices creating Power BI paginated reports are mostly related to answers of several questions. These questions are: what is the purpose for this report? How this report will be helpful? And what is the most important information in this report? What should be the focus, and what kind of additional information is needed and useful, and what kind of information can distract users of these reports from the main part of information. It is important also to know if users need to change some elements, to have some parameters, and it is expected or not to have some changes in the queries in general for this report in the future. So best practices depends on how much we know about usage of these reports, what is important, who will use these reports, and also our understanding if reports will be changed and extended in the future. Let's now see how to use report parameters in Power BI Report Builder. What is the common use of parameters? We have two groups of purposes. First one is when we need to control paginated report data. That means we need to filter paginated report data, but it should be done by users. It is not needed to be done for everyone, or we need to have paginated reports with different parameters for different users and organizations created by ourselves. The second group of reasons is related to different report representations, because based on parameters it is possible to have different values and to customize appearance of the report, which gives additional flexibility and options to apply the same report for different goals. Into report design canvas we have several areas important when we need to design report parameters. First is parameter panel, this area where we have different components representing parameters created in our report. Parameters panel is demonstrated here with number 1. We have different components. Here we have several, number 2, 3, 5. You can have different number of parameters from different types and different representation with appropriate components to configure it. We have option to show and hide parameter area. It is with arrow which is in position number 4, and with view report, this is position number 6, you can view the designed report. You can test it with sample data. There are several important options when we create parameters. It is needed to set name for parameters, prompt, data type. It is important to set if parameter will allow blank or null values, and it is important to configure if it allows multiple values. In Power BI service, now it is possible to have several views for paginated reports. Normal view and page view in a similar way like you will see printed your report. In the default view, you can see information in your report by pages, but experience is different from what you have when a report is printed. That's the reason to be added additionally this page view, where it is possible from the menu in Power BI service to start page view, and after that you can also make some settings regarding to page parameters, and this is probably the most important regarding to how is needed from Power BI service to change the views. Another important thing is related to browser support. Nowadays, Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge supports page view, and if you are opening Power BI report service using these browsers, you will have the best user experience. And if you have page view, you need to have also viewing PDF in the browser enabled. it is by default for most of browsers. For some browsers like Safari and Internet Explorer, page view is not supported. So if you are using these browsers, it is not possible to have this mode opening Power BI service via browser. Page view is also not supported in browsers for mobile devices and in native Power BI mobile apps. Now we will discuss one of the most specific parts when create Power BI paginated reports, and it is related to cascading parameters in paginated reports. Cascading parameters usually are used to manage large amount of data in paginated reports. Using this approach, it is possible to define set of related parameters, and you can have list of values related to already chosen other parameters in your reports. So when you choose the first parameter, depending on this parameter, you will have available next parameters, and you have option for several levels of cascading parameters to have the best user experience and flexibility. So the main idea in this approach is when we select some category using parameters, next parameters to depend on the value of the previous parameters. And values from both category and subcategory parameters are used to filter the report data. There are several things which we need to have for adding cascading parameters to paginated report. First, we need to define dataset query, where this query will include query parameter for each cascading parameter that you need. You need to create separate dataset for each cascading parameters to be possible to provide available values. So each next parameter will include in its dataset options which are related to this parameter and previous parameters. There are two main scenarios where is needed to use cascading parameters. First is when need to filter large set of items and need to have more precise filtering, and second is when you need to present relevant items to have more control in this filtering. There are three main options to filter large sets of items. Filtering by related columns, when you have some relation between different columns, filter by grouping column, and filter by search pattern. The first approach is filtering by related columns. In this case, we need to have report parameters ordered in the correct sequence. After that, we need to create a dataset that retrieves distinct field values using a query for the first parameter, and for each next parameter we need to create additional dataset that retrieves distinct values from previous one using query statements. And for each dataset except the first, we need to map query parameters to the corresponding report parameters. You can see now example. We have a data set where we have related fields regarding to the address of specific reseller, and we need to create the first data set using such kind of query with select distinct specific region from the list of resellers based on the field which we have in the table, and it will be ordered by this specific property or this specific parameter, in this case country region. And we need to have for each next parameter separate dataset with query which actually use information from previous one, and in the end we will have query where we have several options. You see here country region, state, province, city, postal code, and we ordered everything by the last parameter. The second approach is filtering by a grouping column. In this case, we again have report parameters ordered in the correct sequence, and we are creating a data set where we retrieve values grouped by specific parameters. For example, grouped by first letters. It is possible to be in different way. Just for example, here we are using grouping by first letters. After that, we are creating second data set to retrieve values that are filtered from the selected letter, and this will be a repeating operation for each next parameter. And when we have all parameters, actually this will be the final results. Of course, we need to map the query parameter of the every data set to the corresponding report parameter. You can see now example, we have grouping field, we have first data set based on this grouping, and we have after that each next query created based on the previous one, and we have at the end such kind of query like the third one. The third approach includes filtering by search pattern. It is pretty similar to the previous two, but we have here for the first step creating a data set which retrieves all items based on the search pattern. So creation of the first data set is the specific part where we have search pattern. Everything else is the same like for the previous two options. And let's see example. We have search pattern where we have specific query, and we have selection on this week on this type, and after that we have for the each next parameter data set which is based on the previous one in the same way like when we have other options to create cascade parameters. Let's now make a summary for paginated reports in Power BI. What is now important and specific and what we need to consider. First important option to consideration is what size premium capacity is needed for paginated reports. And here depends on generation of Power BI Premium. We have slight difference. For first generation, we need SKUs from P1 to P3 or A4 to A6 in Power BI Embedded, and for the second generation it is available for all SKUs. It is important if you have setup where you are using Power BI Premium first generation. In this case you need to consider the right SKUs. The second important option is to know what is the maximum memory threshold which is needed for paginated reports, and paginated reports can use all memory from specific workload. That means For premium capacity, it is possible to use all available memory. How user access paginated reports? It is the same access like for other content in Power BI service. Is it possible to turn on and off paginated reports from premium capacity? For first generation, it is possible using Power BI admin portal. For the second generation, paginated reports are available always. It is important to know how can monitor usage of paginated reports in specific tenant, and audit logs have available information for specific events like view Power BI report, delete Power BI report, create Power BI report, downloaded Power BI report, and also audit logs provide information for additional events in paginated reports like binded Power BI dataset to gateway, discover Power BI data source, take over data source. Power BI monitoring app is available for paginated reports in Power BI Premium from first generation. For the second generation, this feature is not available. We already discussed in our presentation about Power BI licenses needed for Power BI paginated reports. It is possible to download Power BI report builders with any kind of license. You can make locally different activities related to design of Power BI paginated reports. You need Pro license to upload reports, excluding My Workspace, but to manage workspaces and to have premium capacity, you need to have Power BI Premium license. Power BI Premium per user or Power BI Premium subscription for your organization. You can see in documentation the expected memory consumption for different schools from Power BI paginated reports. Depending on the tier, minimum memory can be between 10% for lower tiers down to 2.5% for upper tiers, and usually 20% of the memory is the default memory usage for paginated reports for all tiers. It is possible to migrate existing reports from SQL Server reporting services to Power BI. For this purpose, there is separate project in GitHub related to reports migration. Power BI Report Builder can publish reports directly to Power BI service. There are several features available for SSRS but not supported yet in Power BI Report Builder. And we have shared data sources, data sets, shared data sets, drill down and click through other reports, linked reports and custom fonts, which are still not available for Power BI paginated reports. Several different authentication methods are supported: SSO for Azure Analysis Services, Azure SQL Database, and Power BI data sources. It is also available OAuth support for Azure SQL Database and Analysis Services, and usually for other data sources currently need to store username and password with data source in the portal gateway. It is possible to use existing Power BI datasets as data source for paginated reports. It is possible to use stored procedures through gateway. It is also absolutely supported expert in different formats like Microsoft Excel, Word, PowerPoint, PDF, CSV, XML for Power BI paginated reports. Printing is also available. Emailing the subscriptions is possible. Running of custom code in Power BI paginated reports is also supported. It is also possible to have paginated reports in Power BI embedded, and you can drill through Power BI report to a paginated report. And now it is time for demos. We have some data in Azure Data Lake where we have a hierarchical namespace with different folders, different structure, which we have here. And it is used like source for Power BI data sets. So you can see here different types of files with data used for these reports. We have generated data sets in Power BI where it's possible to filter data and to have flexible queries. You can see the same project in Power BI Desktop. We have data transformated with several steps of transformations where we have data cleanup, changing some fields, renaming some fields, removing some fields, and generated some calculated fields. This data set contains information about uploaded files and reference data for one huge project related to environmental engineering. How we can create report? There are two options to generate report file from published dataset. It is possible if we go into Power BI service and choose after that create paginated reports. It is possible to create this. So it is possible to use directly this report and to extend it, or to create new report from scratch with Power BI Report Builder. In Power BI Report Builder, we have already created structure where we have two data sets. Our data source actually is the data source which comes directly from exported from Power BI service project, where we have Power BI dataset as our data source, and we have two parameters. We have two parameters on different level in regional structure of specific region used for collecting of this data, and we need to have parameter name, prompt, which can be different type of parameter, available values. They can be from query, they can be configured in different ways, possible default values, and this is for the first parameter. For the second parameter, we have here actually information which is in specific data set based on what we have on the first parameter. You can see in dataset properties also queries which are generated and what we have as fields which are filtered. For queries we are able also to make queries based on query designer. It takes some time to load the query designer, and you can see here available fields which can be dragged and parameters available in the upper area. We can test our with in the report to see what is the situation. You can see here we have cascading parameters. Let's try to choose from these parameters first, and after that we can choose next, and to see view report. View report allows to have this experience where we can make our report in the same way like it will be printed. Of course, some justification is needed here because depending on the page format, you can have more fields, less fields, or to scale it, but it is case of the additional settings. You can go to page setup where to do this, and you can make printing in this way. You can export in different formats your data, and it is possible, of course, to go back to design mode with publish. It's possible to publish your report into specific workspace using specific name. If you starting with reports, you can create new reports from here or just open some already generated, as we already discussed. And it is possible to add additional data sources, connections, data sets from this panel. It is possible to insert different visuals from the Insert tab in a way described in the slide decks. So this is the most important in this presentation. You can also take a look at the tutorial, create a paginated report and upload it to Power BI service. It is very useful if you want to go deep into different steps and configurations. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have any questions, I will be glad to answer your questions now or later. Feel free to ping me anytime via email or directly in social networks. Thank you for joining this session and enjoy the conference.